When people talk about the origins of economic thought, they usually jump straight to familiar names: Adam Smith, Karl Marx, maybe Aristotle if they paid attention in school. But there's a quieter truth buried deep in the medieval world, one that Western history rarely highlights. Nearly 1,000 years ago, long before capitalism, stock markets, or central banks, a Muslim scholar issued a warning that still echoes through every modern financial crisis. He argued that when money loses its moral direction, societies decay from the inside, and judging by the world we live in today, he may have understood our future better than we realize. To understand Al-Ghazali, one of the most influential thinkers of the Islamic Golden Age, you have to picture a world that feels both distant and strangely familiar. It's around the year 1100 CE. Europe is fragmented and poor, still struggling in the aftermath of the early Middle Ages, but beyond its borders another world is thriving. The Islamic world stretches from Al-Andalus in Spain to Persia and beyond. Its cities, Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, are wealthy, crowded, and intellectually alive. Trade routes pulse with caravans carrying silk, spices, textiles, and precious metals. Scholars debate philosophy, law, astronomy, and medicine. Markets buzz with activity. Wealth flows faster than society can fully comprehend. It's in this environment of expanding commerce and rising inequality that Abu Hamid al-Ghazali emerges. He was many things at once: philosopher, jurist, theologian, and sharp social critic. Imagine someone equally capable of explaining the purpose of the human soul and the purpose of money without hesitation. Born in 1058 in Persia, Al-Ghazali rose rapidly through the intellectual ranks. By his mid-30s, he held one of the most prestigious teaching positions in the Islamic world. But what made him remarkable wasn't his status. It was his refusal to accept the world as it was. He saw a society growing richer, markets expanding, and yet something deeply wrong beneath the surface. Wealth was increasing, but meaning was fading. The economy looked healthy, but morally it felt hollow. Sound familiar? Al-Ghazali began asking a dangerous question. What happens when a civilization becomes wealthy faster than it becomes wise? To answer it, he turned his attention to money itself. This is where many modern audiences are surprised. Al-Ghazali wasn't just a religious thinker, he was one of the earliest philosophers to analyze money as both a moral and systemic force. Where Aristotle treated money as a practical invention, and later economists reduced it to equations, Al-Ghazali examined how money shapes behavior, trust, and ultimately the fate of societies. At its core, he believed money was never meant to be worshipped, hoarded, or used as a symbol of status. It was a tool, nothing more, a means of exchange. He compared money to a mirror, useless on its own, valuable only for what it reflects. Money's worth lies not in gold or silver, but in what it enables people to trade, build, and cooperate. Modern economists often claim this insight as their own. Al-Ghazali was writing it in the 11th century, when much of Europe still viewed wealth mainly as land or conquest. From this foundation came one of his most powerful ideas. Hoarded money is dead money. Wealth locked away in chests or buried in the ground wasn't just unproductive, it was harmful. Money that doesn't circulate doesn't pay workers, fund trade, or support families. It chokes economic life. Al-Ghazali described hoarding as freezing the bloodstream of society, a phrase that could easily appear in today's critiques of inequality. His argument wasn't just moral, it was systemic. When the wealthy hoard, scarcity is created artificially. Resources exist, but circulation stops, prices distort, markets break down, ordinary people suffer. From there, he turned to speculation, and he had little patience for it. Merchants who manipulated prices, created artificial shortages, or profited from crisis weren't clever in his eyes. They were corrupt. Whoever profits from the suffering of others, he wrote, profits from corruption. And corruption, once it takes hold, spreads like a disease through markets, institutions, and eventually the entire society. It's hard not to hear modern echoes: financial bubbles, predatory lending, crisis profiteering. Same behavior, different century. Yet Al-Ghazali wasn't anti-profit or anti-business. He believed trade was natural and necessary. Wealth, in his view, could be honorable, even noble. His true enemy was dishonest trade, false weights, hidden defects, lies, manipulation of information. Markets only function when people trust one another. Once trust collapses, the economy collapses right behind it. Long before modern terminology, Al-Ghazali was describing what we now call information asymmetry, moral hazard, and transaction costs. He also placed enormous importance on labor. Work, he believed, was inherently dignified. Wealth earned through effort strengthened character. Wealth gained through manipulation weakened both the individual and society. Strong societies are built by contributors, not exploiters. But his critique didn't stop with individuals. Al-Ghazali also delivered one of the earliest condemnations of state manipulation of currency. Medieval rulers often diluted gold and silver coins to stretch their budgets, stealth inflation in its earliest form. Al-Ghazali called this what it was: theft. Debasing currency eroded trust, punished the poor, and destabilized markets. Leaders, he argued, should protect economic integrity, not sacrifice it for short-term survival. Unjust rulers, he warned, destroy prosperity faster than any foreign enemy. His views weren't theoretical. He lived through political fragmentation, rising taxation, reckless borrowing, and state interference in markets. And he observed a clear pattern. Corruption at the top spreads downward. When rulers cheat, merchants feel justified in cheating customers. When institutions lose integrity, individuals abandon responsibility. The result is a chain reaction of distrust, from the palace treasury to the local marketplace. His conclusion was simple and brutal: a society can survive poverty, but it cannot survive corruption. Economic collapse isn't caused by a lack of resources, it's caused by the breakdown of trust, the invisible glue behind every contract, currency, and institution. Once that trust erodes, even the richest society becomes fragile. That's why his warnings about currency feel so modern. Money, Al-Ghazali understood, is ultimately a belief system. When people stop believing, they abandon it. He predicted that repeated manipulation would drive people toward stronger foreign currencies, exactly what we've seen centuries later in Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, and beyond. Inflation debates today reflect a truth he grasped a millennium ago. Money works only as long as people trust the promises behind it. At the deepest level, Al-Ghazali understood human nature. People hoard out of fear, speculate out of greed, cheat when they think no one is watching, rationalize unethical behavior because everyone else does it, and once exploitation becomes normal, collapse is already underway. You cannot fix an economy without fixing incentives. Laws matter, markets matter. But behind them are human beings, driven by fear, ambition, and desire. If incentives reward dishonesty, the system will drift toward instability no matter how advanced it looks. That's why Al-Ghazali believed wealth without responsibility was dangerous, not just spiritually, but socially. Societies thrive when people contribute more than they extract. They decay when profit is detached from purpose. And that brings us to today. We live in a world where money moves faster than meaning, where inequality reaches historic levels, where speculation often pays better than contribution, where trust in institutions erodes year after year, where bubbles inflate, burst, and inflate again. Everywhere you look, Al-Ghazali's warnings play out in real time. His critique of hoarding mirrors debates over billionaires and offshore wealth. His condemnation of speculation echoes concerns about housing crises, crypto volatility, and shadow banking. His insights on trust explain why stable institutions produce strong currencies and resilient economies. The technology has changed, the scale is global, but human behavior hasn't. Al-Ghazali would likely look at today's runaway debt, speculative frenzies, widening inequality, and institutional mistrust, and repeat the same message he delivered 1,000 years ago. Where justice disappears, prosperity cannot last. Economies don't collapse because numbers fail. They collapse because trust does. Money isn't just a tool. It's a moral ecosystem. And when that ecosystem breaks, the financial system follows. Understanding that isn't just history, it's protection. Because history may not repeat itself, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. And if this gave you a new perspective, hit the subscribe button.